So guys, please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Please confirm to me, guys. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Am I audible? Am I audible, guys? Please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Right, sir. So check it what we completed in the last session regarding this Hibernate. I think so we are discussing about introductory parts in Hibernate. So those who are not at all not having link for this classroom notes, now try to take this link in this classroom. In this link only the daily classroom is going to be classroom notes is going to be uploaded. Now take this link if you are not having it. Okay. All right. So then overall we completed. Just I give a list of topics there. Introduction part we already completed. In the introduction part, just we understood like what enterprise application and its layers we understood. So presentation layer, business layer, and data storage and access layer. Presentation layer part also here we understood there. It's an entry point for the users in order to access the application. To improve look and feel to the enterprise application, we will use this. To get the data from the users, to submit the data to the server-side applications, we will use presentation layer. And to provide different types of requests like get, post, head, and so on from client to the server, we have to use what? Presentation layer. To define client-side data validations by using JavaScript functions, we have to use presentation layer. And to prepare the presentation layer in the enterprise applications, we have to use a separate logic. That logic is what? Their presentation logic. To prepare this presentation logic, we have to use a set of technologies and tools like what? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and so on and so on and so on. Business layer, the main purpose of the business layer is to define business rules and regulations, and to execute the business rules and regulations we are going to use what? Their business layer. To prepare the business layer, we have to use business logic. To prepare this business logic, we will use a set of technologies and tools like EJB, session beans, and Java beans, and DAOs, like different components. Persistence layer, the main purpose of the persistence layer is to interact with the database in order to perform the database operations from the enterprise applications. To prepare the persistence layer in the enterprise applications, we will use a separate logic called persistence logic. To prepare persistence logic in the enterprise applications, we have to use a set of technologies and tools like JDBC, EJB, CentiDBeans, JPA, OpenJPA, and so on. All right, so data persistence. What's the meaning of data persistence now? Representing data permanently in the databases. Representing data permanently in the databases is called what? Their data persistence. To achieve data persistence, we will perform a set of operations. That set of operations are called what? Their persistence operations. All right. To perform these persistence operations, we are going to use CRUD operations there actually. These CRUD operations are called as what? Their persistence operations. C stands for create or insert, R is what? The read or retrieve, U is what? Their update, and D is what? Their delete. In the enterprise applications, to perform the persistence operations, we will use a set of technologies called persistence technologies. We will use a set of technologies called what? Their persistence technologies. To perform data persistence with respect to the Java applications, we will use the following persistence mechanisms. What are the various persistence mechanisms here we are using there? Serialization and deserialization, JDBC, ORM. Under this ORM again, number of implementations are available. EJBs, entity beans, JP, Hibernate, JPA, and so on. Next one is data persistence through serialization and deserialization. Here we understood. Already we completed that point here. Related content here I provided. Okay. Then now observe carefully. What is this serialization first? What is the meaning of serialization? No. The process of separating data from an object is called what? Serialization. What is this deserialization actually? The process of reconstructing an object on the basis of the data is called deserialization. In general, in a distributed applications, it is a frequent requirement to send an object from one mission to another mission. Where to send an object from one mission to another mission, we have to separate the data from an object at the sender mission. We have to send the separated data to the another mission through the network. At the receiver mission, we have to reconstruct an object on the basis of the data. This is actual requirement of like what? This is the actual requirement of serialization and deserialization in the distributed applications only. All right, sir. In a distributed application, whenever we want to send an object from one mission to another mission, object we are unable to send in the network. Why? Because object is a memory block. We are unable to send that object. Where what we have to do, we have to separate the data from an object. That separated data we have to be submitted to the another mission over the network. At other side, at another mission, data is coming from the network. We will take the data. On the base of the data, we are going to create another object. That means we are reconstructing an object on the base of the data. That is called as what there? Deserialization. Right, sir. Observe carefully. In a distributed applications, we will serialize an object and we will send the serialized data to the remote mission. That's the point I'm telling them. This is in distributed application. But what is going to be happening in the case of the standalone applications? No. In standalone applications, if we want to perform serialization over an object, then we have to use serialization and we have to send the serialized data to what file there? A flat file. Flat file is in the sense like what the normal text file or maybe anything, no problem. So to perform the serialization and deserialization, Java has provided the following byte-oriented streams. What are the two byte-oriented streams which are provided by Java? Object output stream. Second one is what there? Object input stream. To perform serialization, what steps here we have to do now? Create serializable class and its object. You know already one point. In Java, by default, all the objects are not eligible for serialization and deserialization. Which objects are eligible for serialization and deserialization? No, only the objects which are implementing, whose classes are implementing Java.io.serializable interface. Only that respective class objects are eligible for serialization and deserialization. There we are using like what their class employee implement serializable. There we are providing some data. Employee emp1 is equal to new employee. That's okay. Serializable object here we created. Class employee implements what there? Serializable. Next one is create file output stream with the target file. File output stream FOS is equal to new file output stream of emp.txt. Create object output stream with the file output stream. Object output stream OS is equal to new object output stream of what there? FOS file output stream. Write serializable object to the object output stream OS.write object of emp1. Up to the diagram here. First we have to create what there? Serializable class and its object. Next we have to create what there? File output stream with the target file. Next we have to prepare what there? Object output stream. Object output stream with the link up of what there? File output stream. Whenever we are writing employee object to the object output stream, the real serialization is performed by object output stream. Object output stream will separate the data from an object and the data will be submitted to the file output stream. Now file output stream will send the data to what there? emp.txt, where the data will be stored. This is what exactly the meaning of what their serialization process. Next one is, what is this deserialization clearly? Create a file input stream. File input stream FIS is equal to new file input stream of emp.txt. Create an object input stream with the file input stream. Object input stream OS is equal to new object input stream of FIS. Read deserialized object from the object input stream. Employee empt is equal to bracket employee OIS dot read object. Okay, now here observe carefully. First we have to create file input stream with the link up of what there? emp.txt. When we create this file input stream, automatically this total data, whatever the data which is available in emp.txt, the data will come to what there? File input stream. After that, create object input stream. When we create object input stream with the link up of file input stream, automatically object input stream will take the data from file input stream. Here data is available. On the basis of this data, it will reconstruct an object. It will reconstruct an object on the basis of this data. So okay, now this is called as what? The deserialization. The deserialized object is available in object input stream that we have to read from object input stream to Java program. For that purpose, we are using what? The object input stream dot read object method. It will read that employee object in the form of object type. Later on we have to perform typecasting anyway. Finally here we are getting what? The deserialized object. Okay, this is like what is the meaning of like what is the serialization and deserialization. But here my question is, we are performing data persistence through serialization and deserialization. We are performing that. But where we are achieving data persistence through the serialization and deserialization? Where we are achieving this data persistence in this mechanism? No? First of all, what is data persistence? Representing data permanently. Representing data permanently. That's the meaning of what there? Persistence, data persistence. In serialization and deserialization, how we are going to achieve this data persistence actually? If we come for this point, answer is very clear. Understand it clearly. Here we created serializable object. We submitted this serializable object to what? Their object output stream. Object output stream is performing serialization or not, and it is submitting the data to file output stream. Now file output stream is able to store the data where? File output stream is able to store the data where? In emp.txt. txt is what? There? Flat file. Flat file will be created where? In a RAM or ROM. That means in a hard disk or RAM memory. Hard disk. In the system hard disk only we are able to get it. That system hard disk is what? There? Permanent memory or temporary memory? Hard disk. System hard disk is what? There? Permanent or temporary? Permanent only. Right. Now the meaning is what? Our data is represented in the permanent memory or not? This is the meaning of what? There? Data persistence. We are representing our data permanently in the file system. So this is exactly the meaning of what? There? Data persistence that we achieved through serialization and deserialization. But there are some drawbacks with that. There are some drawbacks with this mechanism. What are the various drawbacks here? Observe carefully. First one, serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is highly recommended for what applications? No, standalone applications only, not for what? Their enterprise applications. Point number one. Next one is, observe carefully. See here we are dependent on what? Their file system. File system is not recommended in enterprise applications. File systems are having some limitations. Observe carefully. So it is not at all suggestible for what? Their enterprise application. This is suggestible for only what? Their standalone applications. Next one is after that. Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is supporting only what data? Byte oriented data, not supporting what? Their other forms of the data. Character data I want to maintain. No, it is not supporting. Why? Because serialization and deserialization is using byte oriented streams like object output stream, object input stream. Both are what? Their byte oriented streams only. Got my point or not? So these byte oriented streams, they are supporting only byte oriented data. They are not supporting what? Their other forms of the data. Leave it now. Next one is what? Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is providing only create and read persistence operations. See this here? We are storing the data, we are reading the data. I want to perform updation over the data. Is it possible? I want to perform updations over the data. Is it possible? No, it is not possible here. Answer my point clearly. I want to perform delete operation over the data. Is it possible? Not possible here. Max we are going to perform insert operation, delete operation. Insert operation and delete operation here. Right, sir. Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is providing only create and read operations, persistence operations, not supporting what? Their update and delete operations. Understand it clearly. Next one is serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism takes a lot of Java code to perform the simple database operations like create and read. See, to perform this, to insert this data into the database now, how many lines of code here we have used there? Almost 4 to 5 lines of code here we have used. To perform read operation again, how many lines of code here we are using there? 3 lines of code here. It's a total long data. That means number of instructions here we are consuming. Even to perform simple operation, lot of Java code here we have to write. Got it or not? So this is not suggestible in our enterprise applications. Is it? All of you get my point or not? Right, sir. Now these are the various problems here we are getting clearly. To overcome all the above problems, To overcome all the above problems, we have to use JDBC persistence mechanism. We have to use what there? JDBC persistence mechanism. Okay, now we are going to understand what there data persistence through JDBC. There we have to understand what there data persistence through JDBC. Right. I think so. You all aware about JDBC. You are having awareness on what there JDBC. Let me talk about the JDBC a little bit. After that, how it is the persistence mechanism, I will discuss with you clearly. All right, all of you observe carefully. What is this JDBC actually? Java database connectivity. Java database connectivity. This is called what there JDBC. Java database connectivity. Okay, fine. All right, so now it is a step-by-step. It's a step-by-step process to connect with the database in order to perform database operations from Java applications. It's a step-by-step process to connect with the databases, to connect with the database in order to perform the database operations from Java applications, from Java application. Right, so now here I want to provide this point here. Now try to understand it clearly. It is a step-by-step process, comma, an API, comma, an abstraction, comma, a technology. These many names here we can use. JDBC is what? Is a step-by-step process or an API or an abstraction or a technology to connect with the database in order to perform the database operations from a Java application. That is a simple definition for JDBC. I think you should not get any question here in this mode. Already in our JDBC classes, all these definitions are given. In the form of 4 definitions are given these points here now. Observe carefully. All right, next one is what? After understanding these points here, next one is to prepare JDBC applications, we have to use the following steps. To prepare the JDBC applications, there we have to use what there? The following steps. What are the various steps here we have to use? Observe carefully. I'll show in the form of a diagram here. Everybody understand these points here. First of all, here we are having a database. This is database. This is like what there? Database. Now this is what we have there, Java application. This is like what there, Java application. This is Java application. Next one is database, and what next one here? Java applications. All right, sir. After completion of this, now let's move on to the point here. Observe carefully. Whenever we are having database here, automatically there is an engine to execute our SQL queries or database logic. That engine is called as what there? Database engine. Database engine. Database engine will be connected with the database. Database engine will be connected with the database through username and password. Database engine will be connected through username and password with the database. That's okay, fine. This is exactly the point here I'm telling to you. Okay, fine. Step number 1, what I'm telling to you. Load and register driver. Step number 1 is what there? Load and register driver. First of all, what is driver? Driver is an interface existed in between Java application and database. It will map Java representations to the database representations and database representations with the Java representations. Driver is an interface existing between Java application and database. It will map Java representations with the database representations with the Java representations. This is exactly the meaning of what there a driver. Clear. We need to load and register the driver. To load and register the driver, what we are going to use now, tell me. There we have to use class CLS is equal to class dot for name method. To load and register the driver here, we have to use what there class dot for name of. There we have to provide driver class name. There we have to provide what there driver class name. What is the driver class name here? com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. This is a driver class name here we provided. Understand it clearly, right sir? Driver class name that we provided. Okay, fine. Now tell me what is going to be happen here internally. What is going to be happen here if it is a case no? All of you observe carefully. Now here we are going to have what there. This is the driver jdbc driver. This is like what there jdbc driver that we are providing clearly. Of course, what driver we want to use, type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type, that doesn't matter. Any driver here we are going to use, but max cases we are going to use type 4 driver. What driver we are going to use there? Type 4 driver. JDBC driver. This is JDBC driver. Now understand it clearly. What is going to be happen in our content here? First, JVM will take this driver class. JVM will take the provided driver class name. JVM will search for this driver class at a current location, at Java predefined library, and at the locations referred by class path. If we are using MySQL database, then MySQL driver related jar file, MySQL-connector-java, the jar file, you must keep in the class path environment variable. So in the class path environment variable, MySQL-connector.jar file is available. JVM will go there. JVM will go inside this jar file. There it will search for the package com.durgasol.mysql.cj.jdbc package. There it will find what driver.class. When it identifies this driver.class, JVM will load the driver class bytes code to the memory. JVM will load what there the driver class bytes code to the memory. Please remember this. At the time of loading the driver class bytes code to the memory, a static block will be executed. At the time of loading driver class bytes code to the memory, what it will execute there? A static block will be executed. By the execution of the static block, automatically driver manager dot register driver method will be executed. What method will be executed there? Driver manager dot register driver method will be executed. By the execution of this register driver method, our JDBC driver will be activated in between Java application and database. By the execution of this driver manager dot register driver method, automatically our driver will be registered in between Java application and database. This is exactly that internal concept of like what there class dot for name method. Is it? All of you get my point or not? Okay, fine. This is point number 1, what we are getting clearly. I think that internal flow and everything is not required. Just the steps I am giving here, try to understand. But internal flow I will explain to you clearly. So finally, that driver is loaded here, that we understood clearly. This is driver that is existed clearly. Okay, fine. Next one is what after this, after completion of this, observe carefully. Here what we are getting there after completion of this. Now the second step is like what there? The second step is establish connection between Java application and database. Establish the connection between Java application and database. Establish the connection between Java application and database. All of you observe carefully how we are going to establish the connection here. I am going to write the instruction. Connection call is equal to driver manager dot get connection of driver manager dot get connection of. There we have to provide JDBC colon JDBC colon MySQL colon slashes localhost colon 3306 / Durga DB that we provided, comma, next one is what there, database username, comma, database password. Here I need to provide. After that, here we are going to close this one clearly. This is an inner section here we provided about to establish the connection between Java application and database. See this one here. Now already JDBC driver is already connected with this one. Already it is existed here. Now the connection is established between JDBC driver and what next one here? This database engine. Okay, now here we are getting this part here. Now JDBC driver and as well as what their database engine, that connection is established clearly. How this connection is established here in this case now, how connection is established here between these two cases now? What is the point which is going to be happen there? Now tell me. First of all, when JVM execute this particular init section, JVM will execute driver manage.get connection method. When JVM is executing get connection methods, inside this get connection method, internally connect method will be executed. Inside the get connection method, connect method will be executed. That connect method will establish the connection between Java application and database. That connect method will establish the connection between Java application and database. All of you observe carefully. After establish the connection between Java application and database, internally connection object will be created. That connection object difference value will be returned from this get connection method. That connection object difference is available with what there con reference variable. So finally here what happened there, connection is established between Java application and database. It means that connection is established between JDBC driver and the database. That's it. Now let me write this instructions here also. Say for example, class dot for name of like what there, com dot mysql dot cd dot jdbc dot driver. Next one is connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection of the parameters here we have to pass. 3 parameters here we are providing. Three parameters here we are providing. When we provide these 3 parameters, no, they're automatically we are getting our content here. It's okay, fine. Okay, connection is also ready. Then what next one here? After getting this connection and everything here, what next one here we have to do there? The next point is like what I'm telling to you. Third one, create either statement or prepared statement or callable statement objects as per the requirement. Create either statement or prepared statement or callable statement as per the application requirement, as per the requirement. All right, sir. How we are going to create it now? Statement st is equal to con dot create statement. This is a method here we have to provide. That's it. Statement st is equal to con dot create statement method. Observe carefully what is going to be happen there. When we execute this instruction con dot create statement method, JVM will go inside the create statement method where it will create an object for the implementation class of the statement interface. That object reference value is written to what their st variable. Finally here we are getting this statement, but for what purpose we are creating this statement? No, right. After establish the connection between Java application and database, remaining part is we have to prepare SQL queries in Java application. We have to send that SQL queries to the database engine. Now database engine has to execute that queries. Database engine has to perform the database operations. The results must be taken back to the Java program. This is the remaining work. But if you want to send SQL query to the database engine, and if you want to execute that SQL queries, we need to use some predefined library. we have to use some predefined library. To use this predefined library, there we need to use statement, or we have to use prepared statement, or we have to use callable statement. But at basic level of the JDBC applications, we are going to use what their statement only. All right, that is a requirement of using what their statements. That means if we want to perform all the database operations, first we have to write SQL queries in the Java program, and we have to send that SQL queries to what their database engine. To prepare SQL queries, to execute that SQL queries, there we require some predefined library. To perform that, to get that predefined library, there we have to use what their statement or prepared statement, or what next one here, callable statement. That's the requirement of creating these objects clearly. Okay, now here statement is also ready. Now statement is also ready. Now try to understand it clearly. Statement is also ready. How we are going to create that statement? Statement st is equal to con dot create statement. Con dot create statement, that we completed clearly. Okay, fine. Statement is also ready. Then what next one, sir? Observe carefully. What is the next one here? Observe carefully. The next one is like what I'm telling to you. Write and execute SQL queries. Write and execute SQL queries. Write and execute SQL queries. Now observe carefully. To write and execute SQL queries, here we are going to use three methods. What are the three methods here we are going to use to write and execute SQL queries? No. First one is execute query method. Result set RS is equal to st dot execute query method. There here we are going to provide what there, select star from emp1. This is one method. Second one is what there, execute update method. Into row count is equal to st dot execute update method. There we can write what there, update SQL queries, update emp, update or whatever it may be, insert SQL query or update SQL query, delete SQL query. Non-select operations here we are going to perform anything, non-select operations. Update emp1, set ESAL is equal to ESAL plus 500, where ESAL less than 10,000, something else, some value here we are going to provide. This is like what I'm telling there, execute update method. Similarly, execute method, boolean b1 is equal to st dot execute of, there we can write like what there, select SQL query, select a star from emp1, or else maybe another one, boolean b2 is equal to st dot, again here what we provided there, select SQL query, there here we can write like what there, delete from emp1 where ESAL less than 10,000, like this here we can provide. So these are overall three methods here we are getting. Now, what exactly the purpose of these methods? No? Execute query method is to execute select SQL queries in order to fetch the data from database table. Execute query method is to execute select SQL queries in order to fetch the data from the database table. Execute update method is to execute the non-select SQL queries in order to perform the database operations like what? Insert, update, delete, this kind of operations. Execute method, it can be used to execute both the types of SQL queries. What exactly the both the types of SQL queries? No, maybe select SQL query and a non-select SQL query. If we use select SQL query, we can fetch the data from database table and it will return true value. If we use non-select SQL query, it will perform the respective database operation and it will return what their false value. So in the case of select SQL query, true value. In the case of non-select SQL query, it will be like what their false value here we are getting. Right. So now these are overall three methods here we are using to perform all the database operations clearly. Now let's understand this point here. In our content here, observe carefully. First we are providing like what there, result set RS is equal to st dot execute query of select star from emp1. What's going to be happen here? When we execute this particular instruction, JVM will take the provided string value. Then JVM will send that provided string value to what their JDBC driver. JDBC driver will send that SQL query, that string value to the connection. Now connection will carry the provided SQL query to the database engine. Now database engine is able to execute that SQL query by following some steps. What are the various steps it is able to take now? First one is we can understand query tokenization, query parsing, query optimization and query execution. By following these steps, the database operation will be performed. What is the database operation actually? Select star from EMP1 means that it will fetch the data from the database table. When it fetches the data from the database table, the database engine will take the data and the database engine will send that fetched data to the connection. Now database engine will send that fetched data to the connection. Now connection will carry that fetched data to the database, that means JDBC driver. Now JDBC driver will take that fetched data in the form of result set object. It will create that result set object. It able to take that fetched data in the form of result set object. Then it able to send that result set object to the respective Java application. Now here we are getting what their result set object here we are creating at our Java application. This is like what I am telling there, result set object. Now inside this result set object, our required data is available. Inside the result set object, what data is available here? Our required data is available. That's it. Now this is entire process of executing what there, select SQL query. Whatever the result set object which is created inside the JDBC program, that result set object reference value is written by execute query method. By this here we are able to perform what there, the database operations clearly. So all of you get my point or not? Okay, fine. Now understand this point clearly again. This is completed. Next one is what? For example, I want to perform non-select SQL query execution. I want to execute what there? Non-select SQL query. Int row count is equal to st dot execute update of, there I'm going to provide like what there, update emp1, set e cell is equal to e cell plus 500, where e cell less than 10,000. This data here we are getting clearly. Okay. Now here what is going to be happen there? First JVM will take this SQL query, whatever the non-select SQL query here we provided there. JVM will take this SQL query. JVM will send that SQL query to like what there, JDBC driver. Now JDBC driver will send that SQL query to the connection. JDBC driver will send that SQL query to the connection. Now connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Now database engine will perform the required database operation, that is what their update operation. By performing this update operation, it finds like row count value. Maybe for example 5 records are updated or 10 records are updated, whatever it may be, some integer value it is able to identify. When it is identifying that record, that means row count value or record count value, that value would be taken by this database engine. After this, database engine will send that generated row count value to the connection. It will send the generated row count value to the connection. Now connection will carry the row count value to the JDBC driver. Connection will carry that row count value to the JDBC driver. Now JDBC driver will send the row count value to the Java application as an integer value. In the form of an integer value, it is able to send the generated row count value. Now that is like what their row count. When this row count value is generated, execute update method will take that row count value. That value will be submitted to row count variable. Finally here we executed what there, non-select SQL query is also be executed with our content. Got it or not? That's okay, fine. After completion of this, that another point here, what I am telling to you, execute method. Execute method here. Understand it clearly? Boolean B1 is equal to st dot execute of select star from emp1. Boolean B1 is equal to st dot execute of select star from emp1. Understand it clearly? First, JVM will take the provided select SQL query. JVM will send that select SQL query to the JDBC driver. JDBC driver will send that SQL query to the connection. Connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Database engine will execute that select SQL query by following the same steps. Then it able to fetch the data from database table. That fetched data will be given back to the connection. Connection will carry that fetched data to the JDBC driver. JDBC driver will send that fetched data in the form of result set object to the Java program. But even though result set object is created at Java program, execute method will return true value only. The execute method will not return the generated result set object. Execute method will return what value? True value only. Suppose if we are display system.out.println of B1 here, what output here we are able to get? No, true as an output here we are getting. Understand it point clearly? No? Okay, now this is the way of executing select SQL query by using execute method. Next one is, for example, you know already execute method can be used to execute both the types of SQL queries, both the select SQL queries and non-select SQL queries. Now observe carefully. Now inside this, what I am going to do there, boolean b2 is equal to st dot execute method. Boolean b2 is equal to st dot execute of. Now here I am going to provide like what there, something else, update emp1 set ECL is equal to ECL less than 10,000. That value here we provided. After completion of this, what I am going to do there, system.out.println of b2 variable here we are going to display. Now in this case, what is going to be happen here? Almost all the same process here. But what happened here? Observe carefully. When JVM execute this particular instruction, first JVM will take this update SQL query. JVM will take what there? Update SQL query. And JVM will send that update SQL query to the JDBC driver. JDBC driver will send that update SQL query to the connection. Connection will carry that update SQL query to the database engine. Database engine will execute that update SQL query by performing this query tokenization, query parsing, query optimization, and query execution. Performs the update operation over the database table. Identifies the row count value. How many records are updated there in the database table? Identifies the row count value. When row count value is identified, the row count value is given back to the connection. Connection will carry the row count value to the JDBC driver. JDBC driver will send the row count value to the Java program. But execute method will return what value? False value. Execute method will return what value? False value. Why? Because, understand my point clearly, execute method will have a return type boolean. When we execute select SQL query with execute method, it will return true value. When we execute non-select SQL query with execute method, it will return what value here? No, false value. Why? Because it returns what value here? Boolean value. No. Right, sir. Now finally here we executed what there? Execute method with the non-select SQL query also here we executed. But when we are going to use execute method in JDB's applications, when we are able to use this execute method in the JDB's applications, when we are not aware what SQL query we are going to execute, that SQL queries are provided by the user dynamically, but we don't know what SQL query we are going to get, we are going to execute. In that situation, we have to use what method here? Execute method. Execute method will execute that provided SQL query. If it executes select SQL query, it will return true value. If it executes non-select SQL query, then it will return what value here? No, false value it is able to return. Finally, we are able to get the output is like what there? Maybe true or maybe false. That values here we are able to get clearly. Right, so now this is overall the picture here what we are doing inside the JDBC. Right, so then after this, after completion of, after executing all these SQL queries, the last step is like what there? Close the resources. Close the resources. What are the various resources we opened clearly? All right, so now here we need to provide rs.close method. result set dot close method or st dot close method, st dot close method, and finally what we are getting there, con dot close method. Strictly speaking, if we close connection, automatically statement is going to be closed. If we close statement, automatically result set is going to be closed. All these are linked internally. So even not required to use these two statements. Just if we provide like what their con dot close, that's sufficient. Automatically, all the results, all the resources are going to be closed in our applications clearly. Automatically, all the resources are going to be closed here. By that, we are able to get some clarity. By that, we are able to finish our total, like what their JDBC program execution, we are able to complete with this close operation. Right, sir? Just overall, what I am telling to you, just JDBC definition are given. What are the various steps we require to perform database operations by using JDBC? In JDBC, what are the various steps we require to perform database operations? Up to that here, we provided clearly. Is that all of you are getting it or not? But first of all, now answer for it. We understood the total JDBC. Okay, fine, good. The total JDBC steps and overview are given. That's okay, fine. But how data persistency we are able to achieve inside the JDBC? That's my question. How data persistence is achieved inside the JDBC? That's my question now. Right. I'm going to give some clarity. Try to observe carefully. Listen, all of you listen carefully. In this overall JDBC architecture, first we establish the connection or not? Listen, all of you know. What we establish there? Connection. When we establish the connection, connection has a default nature. That nature is what? Auto commit. When we establish connection in JDBC applications, automatically that connection will have what nature here now? Auto commit nature. What is the meaning of auto commit nature now? When we submit an SQL query to the connection, connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine, and connection will make the database engine to execute the provided SQL query and store the result of that SQL query in the database. All of you get my point or not? What is the point here I'm telling to you? Observe carefully. What is the meaning of auto commit nature for our connection here? The meaning of auto commit nature is what there? When we submit an SQL query to the connection, as per the auto commit nature of the connection, connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Connection will make the database engine execute this SQL query and store the results of this SQL query into the database permanently, not temporarily, permanently. Got my point or not? This is exactly the nature of what there? Auto commit. This is the meaning of like what there? Auto commit. Now here the data is represented in the database permanently or not? If the data is represented inside the database permanently or not? This nature is exactly called as what there? Data persistence. This is the meaning of like what there? Data persistence. That's it. We are able to achieve data persistence inside the JDBC programs or through the JDBC just by using auto commit nature of the connection. It able to make the database engine to execute the SQL query to store the results into the database table permanently. Where maintaining the data in the database tables permanently is called as what there? Data persistence. This is a way of implementing what there? Data persistence. Is that all of you are getting clarity or not? All right, sir. Let's move on to the point here. In JDBC applications, when we establish the connection between Java application and the database, automatically connection will have a default nature auto commit. A default nature auto commit. As per the connections auto commit nature, as per the connections auto commit nature, when we submit an SQL query to the connection, when we submit an SQL query to the connection, connection will carry that SQL query, the provided SQL query, and the connection will carry the provided SQL query to the database engine, and the connection will make the database engine to execute the provided SQL query, and what next one, to execute the provided SQL query. After that, and to store the results of the provided SQL query in the database. That is exactly the point here we can understand about like what their auto commit nature. As per the connections auto commit nature, when we submit an SQL query to the connection will carry the provided SQL query to the database engine, and the connection will make the database engine to execute the provided SQL query and to store the results of that provided SQL query in the database. In this context, data will be represented in the databases permanently. In this context, data will be represented in the database permanently. So it is called as what there? It is called data persistence. So it is called what there? Data persistence. This is the meaning of like what there? Data persistence. That's it. Right, sir. Finally, what we achieved here? Data persistence inside the JDBC applications here we achieved. Am I right or not? This point here we understood clearly about the data persistence. That's okay, fine. Up to that, it's okay, fine. But what is that next point here? I'm telling to you. Understand this point clearly. Another content is like what there? What I'm telling to you. Observe carefully. To achieve data persistence, already we have JDBC. Then what is the requirement to go for ORM tools? What is the requirement to go for this ORM tools, ORM implemented tools? Means that what are the drawbacks with this data persistency? What is the drawback with JDBC? What you are able to get the drawbacks inside the JDBC? Understand my point clearly? So definitely some problems are available with what there? JDBC. To overcome that problems only, we have to go with what there? ORM, object relational mapping. How we are going to use this ORM, that we will understand later on. But first of all, we have to understand what are the various problems with the JDBC. What exactly the problems here we are getting with what there? JDBC. Right. Understand the point clearly, what I'm telling to you. Listen, all of you listen carefully. In JDBC data persistence mechanism, in a JDBC data persistence mechanism, we are able to get the following problems. We are able to get the following problems. All of you listen carefully. Now tell me, sir, overall, how many steps are available in JDBC? JDBC steps, if you observe this, nearly 5 steps are available or not? Can you tell me what are the 5 steps now? Load and register the driver, establish the connection between Java application and database, create either statement or prepared statement or callable statement, write and execute SQL queries. Last one is what there? Close the connection. Overall, these 5 steps are available. Okay. For example, I want to prepare 10 JDBC applications. I want to prepare 10 JDBC applications. Out of these 10 JDBC applications, how many steps are repeatable steps and how many steps are variable steps? No? Tell me, I'm asking this to you. Class.forName method, any changes from application to application? No change. Connection con is equal to driver manage dot get connection. Any change? No, no change. Statement st is equal to con dot create statement. Any change? No, no change. But execute query method or execute update method or execute method changes are going to be happen or not. That means write and execute SQL query. That step is variable. That is variable from application to application. Close the resources. Con dot close method. Any change here from application to application? No change. Out of these five steps, only one step is actual step. All the remaining steps are repeatable or not. From one JDBC application to another JDBC application, all remaining four steps are fixed steps, no changes. Only one step is a variable step or not. Now the same repeatable code, is called as boilerplate code. The repeatable code is what there? Boilerplate code. All of you get my point now? The repeatable code is what there? Boilerplate code. To avoid this boilerplate code, that means maintaining this boilerplate code is the problem inside the JDBC. In JDBC, if we use JDBC as a persistence mechanism in our enterprise application, lot of boilerplate code we have to write. What is that boilerplate code? Repeatable code. That repeatable code here we have to write. That's the main problem with what there? JDBC. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? Right. Now I'm giving clarity for you. Try to understand it. No. JDBC. In JDBC data persistence mechanism, we have to provide a lot of boilerplate code. We have to provide what there? A lot of boilerplate code. That is the repeatable code. That is the repeatable code, like repeatable code, like what there? First one is what there? Repeatable code is what there? Load and register driver. Load and register driver. Next one is establish connection between Java application and database. Establish connection between Java application and database. All right, now create a statement object. Then after this, close the resources. Right, so that is a repeatable code, like a repeatable code in all the applications. Repeatable code like what there? Load and register the driver, establish the connection between Java application and database, create statement object, close the resources. That what we are getting clearly. This is point number one. Boilerplate code is the main problem. Next one is, all of you observe carefully. Another important point I'm telling to you. Now tell me, if you want to perform database operations by using JDBC, there we have to write these SQL queries or not? Come on, there we have to write what there? These SQL queries or not? So developer must require SQL knowledge. Developers must have what knowledge there? SQL knowledge that developers must require. All right, sir. Now observe carefully. In JDBC, data persistence, mechanism, developers, that means we are going to write, we must write SQL queries explicitly. So developers must have knowledge on the SQL queries. That is extra burden to the developers. But I want to have an alternative. In that alternative, without using SQL queries, I want to perform the database operations. Answer my point. First point is what there? I want to have an alternative where I should not provide boilerplate code. Exact required code only I have to provide. Next one, persistence mechanism, SQL queries here we have to write. But I want to have an alternative. In that alternative, what I want to provide there? I want to perform my database operations without providing SQL queries. Without using SQL queries, I need to perform what their database operations. Got it or not? Indirectly, what I am telling to you, Hibernate only, alternative. In Hibernate, we are not going to perform every time class.form and all these concepts. Boilerplate code, we are not going to write. Second one is what there? In Hibernate, we are not going to write SQL queries. Writing SQL queries is a crime inside the Hibernate. The main intention of the Hibernate is what there? You should not write any SQL query. Just use Java methods. For each and every operation, Java methods are available. Perform Java methods. Execute Java methods. Automatically, database operations have to be performed. That's the main intention of Hibernate. All right, sir. Next one is what there? After this, in a JDBC data persistence mechanism, we must have the focus on driver management. What's the meaning of this driver management? No, whether we added the driver properly or not, the driver class names we provided properly or not, the driver URLs we provided properly or not. Got my point or not? These many explicit concentrations here we require. Driver management. Next one is what there? Another point here. Similar point here. One more point here I'm telling to you. In JDBC data persistence mechanism, we must have focus on the connection management. Connection management. What's the meaning of this connection management here? Creating connection object. The connection object is created properly or not? Any mistakes are available in the URLs or not? Database usernames or not? That special focus is required on like what there? Connection management. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? Right, sir. These many problems here we are able to get with what there? JDBC. JDBC. What are the various problems there? First one is like what there? Boilerplate code. Lot of code here we have to write. Next one is what there? Must have SQL knowledge. And one more point here itself I want to provide there. In JDBC data persistence mechanism, we will hard code the SQL queries. That means we are providing SQL queries directly, hard coded data. The total content is like what their hard coded data. Direct SQL queries we are writing. Directly SQL queries we are writing as a value. Got my point? This is nothing but what their hard coding the SQL queries there. That is also another problem here. But we should not write SQL queries. That is a problem here. No need to write SQL queries. Without writing SQL queries, we have to perform the database operations. Right. Similarly, in the case of this one also, in JDBC data person mechanism, we must have focus on the driver management and connection management. And both connections and drivers, both here we have to check properly every time on each and every application that we have to check properly. Yes, sir. Got it or not? So these are the various problems here we are able to get what there with the JDBC. All right. To overcome these problems, we have to use an alternative, that is ORM. We have to use an alternative, that is what there? ORM. What is that ORM actually? Object relational mapping. Yes, sir. Got it or not? Okay. Then after understanding this, I need to talk about what there? ORM is a heading there. There we need to understand that each and every point clearly. Object relational mapping. First, as a first step, I'm going to discuss with you what is the requirement of the ORM in the enterprise applications. How we are going to provide this ORM inside the enterprise applications. That one by one points we are going to understand. Then later on we are going to see ORM implemented tools, where one of the ORM implemented tool is what there? Hibernate. From this point onwards, we are going to talk about what there? Hibernate and its related content. That's it, guys. Now these are the various points here we have to understand clearly. Okay. Right, sir. Now today, just I want to stop this session here with this content here. Then tomorrow we are going to continue. We are going to discuss about what their ORM related content directly. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We'll meet on tomorrow.